The neon sign flickered as I pulled into the motel lot, its red glow buzzing like a warning I ignored. I was exhausted alone, and about to step into a nightmare I'd never escape. Spring 2010 was a blur of ambition and fatigue. I was a college student, fresh off my associate's degree, chasing a bachelor's at a university an hour and a half from home. My days were split: classes, work, endless drives. That semester, I'd overloaded my schedule, squeezing classes into workdays, leaving me drained. One evening, I couldn't face the drive home. A roadside motel seemed like salvation. I was wrong. The university was my lifeline, its major and minor perfectly aligned with my dreams. But the commute was a thief, stealing sleep and sanity. I'd leave home at dawn, return past midnight, my eyes burning from headlights and textbooks. That day, my last class ran late, and work had been brutal. The thought of driving home only to turn back at sunrise felt impossible. Step into this moment with me. Feel the weight of exhaustion, the pull of a quick fix. A motel across from campus, cheap and quiet, beckoned. I booked a room, promising myself a few hours of rest before my test tomorrow. The motel was a relic, its neon sign half dead, casting a sickly glow over cracked asphalt. The clerk barely looked up as I checked in, his fingers stained yellow from cigarettes. My room was at the end of the lot, number 17. Its door scuffed and heavy. You've stayed in places like this, haven't you? The kind that feel wrong before you even step inside. Inside, the air was stale, thick, with the scent of mildew and old carpet. To the left, a bathroom with chipped tiles. Straight ahead, glass sliding doors led to a tiny balcony. To the right, a TV bolted to the wall, a double bed with a sagging mattress, and a table flanked by 2 chairs. Small lamps wired to the wall cast a dim yellow light. I dropped my bag, grabbed my books, and headed to campus for dinner. The cafeteria's noise grounded me. Laughter, clinking trays life. Afterward, I stopped at the Walmart across the street, buying a fresh shirt and jeans for tomorrow. Back at the motel, I settled at the table, spreading out my notes for the test. The room felt smaller, now the walls closer. Feel the quiet now, the way it presses against your ears. I flipped through pages, the TV murmuring in the background, but something pulled my focus. The floor under the table felt soft, spongy, like it might give way. I pressed my foot down, expecting dampness, but my soul was dry. A leak, maybe. I pushed the thought aside, blaming the motel's age. The clock ticked past 10 p.m. My eyes ached, the words in my notes blurring. The floor's strange texture nagged at me, a subtle wrongness, I couldn't shake. I checked again, still dry, still soft. Look closer now. Notice the details that don't add up. I turned up the TV, hoping its noise would drown out my unease, but the room seemed to resist its swallowing sound. I gave up studying my body, screaming for rest. A shower might help. The bathroom was cold, the water lukewarm, but it cleared my head. I dried off, slipped into pajamas, and climbed into bed, shutting off the TV and lights. Darkness flooded the room, heavy, almost tangible. I pulled the thin blanket to my chin, the mattress creaking beneath me. Sleep wouldn't come. The silence was alive, buzzing with a presence I couldn't name. You've felt this, haven't you? That moment when the dark feels like it's watching. Minutes passed, or was it hours? Then voices. A man and a woman, low and urgent, right above me. I bolted upright, my heart hammering. The room was empty, the shadows unmoving. I fumbled for the lamp, its light weak but steady. Nothing. No one. The TV was off the sliding doors, locked. I checked the bathroom, the closet empty. My hands shook. As I turned the TV back on its glow, a frail shield. The voices were gone, but their echo lingered, a conversation I wasn't meant to hear. I sank onto the bed, staring at the screen, willing my eyes to stay open. Feel the fear now, the way it claws at your chest. Exhaustion won, pulling me under. I flicked off the TV, left the lamp on, and curled up the light, a faint comfort. Sleep came uneasy, fragmented. The alarm jolted me awake at 6 a.m. I reached to silence it, my eyes heavy, and froze. On the pillow where my head had been was a streak of blood, dark wet, trailing down the bed. Your breath catches, doesn't it? Mine stopped. I leapt up, my hands flying to my head, my neck searching for a wound. Nothing. My skin was clean, unmarked. The blood wasn't mine. I stared at it, my mind racing. Had it been there all night? Was it real? The floor under the table felt softer now, almost liquid. I checked my feet, dry, no blood, no trace. Look at the pillow again. See the stain spreading like a warning. Panic took over. I grabbed my bag, my books, my clothes not bothering to change. The room seemed to watch its walls, leaning in. I flung open the door, the morning air sharp against my skin. I drove to campus, my hands gripping the wheel, the blood's image burned into my mind. In class, my classmates noticed my pale face, my trembling hands. "You look like hell," one said. I told them, soggy floor, voices, blood. They laughed, called it a dream, a stress-induced hallucination. You've been dismissed like this, haven't you? Knowing what you saw was real. I knew better. It happened. I felt it. I never returned to that motel. A month later, I left the university, unable to shake the memory of that night. The commute, the stress, they were excuses. The truth was, I couldn't stay near that place. Let me tell you about the clerk. His story will make you question everything. Years later, I met a man who'd worked at a nearby diner. He knew the motel, its reputation. A couple had died there decades ago, he said, in room 17. Their argument had turned violent, blood spilled on that same bed. The motel never recovered its rooms, cursed with their echoes. He'd seen guests leave, shaken, speaking of voices, stains that appeared from nowhere. I'm older now, but that night lives in me. I avoid motels, their flickering signs, a reminder of room 17. Feel the chill now, the way it crawls up your spine. I see the blood. When I close my eyes, hear the voices in the quiet. The motel still stands. I hear its doors open to new guests. And sometimes, in the dark, I wonder if they're still there, waiting for someone new to listen. The clock was ticking, and I was late, 5 minutes late for my 8th grade class in room 314. The hallway stretched endlessly before me, its fluorescent lights flickering like a dying pulse. I thought it was just another day at school, another debate with my students. But when Kyle walked in smiling that shy smile, something felt wrong. And when I learned he wasn't there, hadn't been there all day, I realized the truth. Whatever I saw wasn't him. It was something else. And it was in my classroom. It was 2014, and I was a high school teacher in a province of Southeast Asia, a place where modernity and tradition collided in strange, beautiful ways. The city was urbanized. Cars honked through busy streets. Wi-Fi connected every home, and TVs blared late into the night. But it still carried the quiet charm of a province surrounded by rolling farms, whispering creeks, and ancient trees that seemed to guard secrets older than the city itself. The school where I taught was a beacon of progress. Its sleek building, equipped with air conditioning and CCTV cameras in every classroom, a nod to safety in a world that felt increasingly uncertain. I loved teaching there, not just for the modern comforts, but for the students, 8th graders, with bright eyes and a politeness that reminded me of simpler times. They called me teacher, their voices soft and respectful, and I felt at home in their presence, even on the toughest days. That day, though, was different. It was a humid afternoon, the kind where the air clings to your skin like a second shirt. I was scheduled for 2 periods with my 8th grade class in room 314, 12:20 p.m. and 2:40 p.m. The first was right after lunch, a time when students often straggled their footsteps, echoing in the hallways as they rushed to beat the bell. I was running late myself, my bag slung over my shoulder, my shoes squeaking on the polished floor as I hurried through the long corridor between rooms 305 and 304. The hallway was a tunnel of fluorescent light, its white walls sterile and unyielding, broken only by the occasional poster or fire exit sign. Room 314 was at the far end, past a dozen other classrooms. Its door, a heavy slab of wood with a small window that always seemed to reflect more shadow than light. I was 5 minutes late when I reached it, my breath short, my forehead damp with sweat, despite the air conditioning. The hallway was nearly empty, save for a few students scurrying to their classes, their voices a distant murmur. I pushed open the door to room 314, expecting the usual chaos of 8th graders settling in, but the room was quiet. The students already seated, their eyes on me as I dropped my bag on the desk. "Sorry I'm late," I said, forcing a smile, my voice echoing in the stillness. We were having a debate that day, a rare chance for me to sit back and listen, so I took my place at the rear of the room, my notebook open, my pen tapping against the page as the students began. A few minutes, and the door opened, and Kyle walked in. He was one of my quieter students, a lanky boy with messy hair and a shy smile that always made me think he was hiding a secret joke. He slipped into his seat, his cheeks flushed, his eyes avoiding mine. I raised an eyebrow, tapping my watch in a playful scold. "Late again, Kyle," I said, my tone light, expecting his usual mumbled apology. He just smiled that same shy curve of his lips and looked down at his desk. I didn't press it. It was his first tardy, and I wasn't one to dock points for a few minutes. The debate continued, the students' voices rising and falling, their arguments sharp and earnest. I watched Kyle out of the corner of my eye, something nagging at me, a faint unease I couldn't place. His smile lingered too fixed, too still, like it had been painted on. But I brushed it off, focusing on the debate, the clock ticking toward the end of the period. When the bell rang, I reminded the class about our skit for the 2:40 period, a group performance they'd been preparing for weeks. They filed out their chatter, filling the hallway, and I gathered my things, heading to the teacher's lounge for a quick break. The afternoon passed in a blur, grading papers, sipping lukewarm coffee, the hum of the school, a comforting backdrop. By 2:40, I was back in room 314, standing at the front giving final instructions for the skit. The students were buzzing with excitement, adjusting props, whispering lines. But then Erica, one of the group leaders, raised her hand, her face troubled. "Teacher, we can't perform today," she said. "Our lead actor's absent." I frowned, scanning the room. Every chair was filled, every face familiar. "Who's absent?" I asked, my voice calm but curious. Erica hesitated, then said, "It's Kyle. He's been gone all day." My heart skipped a cold jolt that made my fingers tighten around my pen. "Kyle," I said, my voice sharper than I meant. "I saw him this morning in the 12:20 class." Erica shook her head, her eyes wide. "No, teacher. He didn't come to school today. I checked with his group. He's been absent." The other students nodded, murmuring agreement, their faces a mix of confusion and unease. I stood there, my mind racing, replaying the morning. Kyle, walking in late, his shy smile, his silence. I'd seen him, clear as day, sitting in that chair, his presence as real as the desk beneath my hands. Hadn't I? The room felt smaller now, the air heavier, the hum of the air conditioner suddenly too loud. I forced a smile, told Erica her group could present next time, and moved on with the skit. But my thoughts were elsewhere. The students performed their voices a distant hum while I sat at the back, my eyes fixed on Kyle's empty chair. It wasn't empty this morning. I was sure of it. Or was I? After class, I couldn't shake the feeling, that nagging dread that something was wrong. I headed to the admin office, my steps quick, my heart pounding. The security desk was at the far end, manned by an older officer named Mr. Tan, his face lined with years of late-night shifts. "I need to see the CCTV footage from room 314, 12:20 p.m. I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Mr. Tan raised an eyebrow, his fingers pausing on his keyboard. "Room 314? He asked, his tone odd, like I'd said something unexpected. "Why that room?" I explained, keeping it vague. "Kyle late, maybe a mistake in the attendance." But Mr. Tan's face grew serious, his eyes narrowing. "That's strange," he said, turning his monitor toward me. "Every camera in the building, 40+ rooms, worked fine today, except room 314. At 12:20, the feed went dead, just static for about 10 minutes. Then it came back. My stomach dropped a sickening lurch that left me dizzy. Static. I repeated my voice, barely a whisper. Mr. Tan nodded, clicking through the footage. The screen showed room 314, empty. Then a burst of static, like a storm had swept through the wires. When the feed returned, the classroom was as I'd left it. The students gone. The desks still. "That's not normal," Mr. Tan said, his voice low. "We've had issues with that room before. Glitches, shadows on the feed, things we can't explain." He didn't meet my eyes, his fingers tapping nervously on the desk. I thanked him, my voice hollow, and left the weight of his words pressing against me. Back in room 314, I stood alone. The classroom, silent, the air thick with something I couldn't name. The chairs were neatly aligned, the whiteboard clean, but the room felt wrong, like it was holding its breath. I walked to Kyle's desk, my hand brushing the surface, expecting what of him, a clue. There was nothing, just cold plastic and a faint scratch in the corner, like someone had carved it with a nail. I thought about Kyle's smile, that shy, fixed curve, and a chill ran through me, sharp and sudden, like stepping into a shadow. What was that thing I saw? My mind raced, grasping for answers. A hallucination, a trick of the light. But I'd seen him, felt his presence, watched him sit there as real as the students around him. That night, I couldn't sleep. The image of Kyle, or whatever it was, stayed with me, his smile burning into my mind. I started asking around discreetly, not wanting to sound unhinged. A janitor, an old man who'd worked at the school for decades, told me about room 314. Years ago, a student had collapsed there, a boy, about Kyle's age, his heart stopping during a test. They never found a cause, but the room was never the same after that. Teachers reported cold spots, flickering lights, faces in the windows that vanished when you looked twice. Another teacher swore she'd seen a student in her class who wasn't on the roster, a boy who smiled and disappeared when she called his name. I listened, my skin crawling, my mind rejecting the stories, even as they echoed my own. I kept teaching in room 314, but it was different now. The air felt heavier, the shadows deeper, like the room was watching me. I checked the attendance twice, my eyes lingering on Kyle's name. His absence, a constant reminder. He came back the next day, his smile the same, his voice soft as he apologized for missing class. I watched him closely, searching for something, anything that didn't belong. But he was just Kyle, a normal kid, oblivious to the thing that had worn his face. I never told him what I saw. I didn't want to scare him, or maybe I didn't want to admit. It was real. The CCTV never glitched again. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still there, lingering in room 314, waiting for its next chance. I started avoiding the hallway, after hours taking the long way to the staff room. My steps quick, my eyes on the ground. The school was still my home, my students still my pride. But room 314 was tainted, a place where the line between real and unreal had blurred. I don't know what I saw that day. A ghost, a trick, something worse. But I know it was there. I know it saw me. And I know deep in my bones that it's still in that room, waiting for someone else to notice. The white pickup truck crept down my street, its headlights slicing through the dusk like eyes that knew too much. I watched from my backyard, a chill settling in my bones, sensing I was about to uncover something I'd never unsee. I live in a small town in the eastern US, where everyone knows your name and your business. My work in the medical field has introduced me to all sorts: paramedics, cops, folks with stories that cling like damp air. Small-town life isn't quiet, not when everybody knows somebody who knows something. But nothing prepared me for that Saturday evening when the world I thought I knew turned inside out. I'm single, living alone in a house perched on a hill with a view of the fire station across the street. My dog, a scrappy mutt with a nose for trouble, is my first line of defense. Motion sensors and security cameras are my second, a necessity, after a stalker forced me to move twice. Step into this moment with me. Feel the weight of living alone, the need to watch every shadow. The fire station's lights are a comfort, a reminder of help just steps away. Next to it, the road department's lot sits a graveyard of empty garbage trucks and heavy equipment unguarded by cameras. Small-town oversight, I suppose. My house overlooks the street, hidden by tall trees, and a half cornfield next door. From my backyard, I see everything. Cars, neighbors, the rhythm of our quiet life. But on that Independence Day weekend, the town was a ghost. Everyone was at the fairgrounds, lost in barbecue smoke and fireworks. I stayed home. Crowds aren't my thing, and my dog hates the noise. You've felt that solitude, haven't you? The quiet that's too quiet, making every sound a threat. I took her out to the backyard as the sun dipped low, the sky bruising purple. That's when I saw it, the truck. It was white, large, unfamiliar, moving slower than it should. Its tires crunched gravel, deliberate, like it was searching. I froze, my dog's ears, pricked her body, tense. The truck reached the end of the street, turned and came back faster, this time pulling into the road department's lot. Look closer now. See the truck, its shape wrong against the fading light. The driver stepped out, stocky, average height, his movements quick but careful. He reached into the truck bed, pulling out 3 black trash bags, heavy and bulging. One by one, he tossed them into the garbage truck's hopper, then drove off, the engine's growl fading into the dusk. I'm not the nosy type, not one to spy on neighbors like some small-town stereotype. People dump trash in those trucks all the time. Old furniture, broken appliances, sneaking out at night to avoid the landfill. But this felt different. Feel the unease now, the way it twists your gut. Those bags weren't right. Too heavy, too deliberate. My stalker's shadow lingered in my mind, making every stranger a threat. I called the police, my voice steady, but my hands shaking. Just check it. I told dispatch, describing the truck, the man, the bags. I brought my dog inside, her warmth a fleeting comfort as I waited. Minutes later, a patrol car pulled up its lights, cutting through the gathering dark. I crossed the street, meeting the officer, a young guy I recognized from the station. His face was calm, professional, but his eyes darted to the lot. I pointed out the truck, the bags, my words spilling out. He nodded, grabbed his flashlight, and told me to stay back. You've waited like this, haven't you? The moment before everything changes. He climbed onto the truck, gloved hands fumbling with the knotted bags. The first one resisted the plastic taut, but he pried it open. He looked inside, froze, then twisted it shut, stepping back fast. What I asked, my voice, barely a whisper. His face was pale, his hand trembling as he reached for his radio. It's a body, he said, his voice cracking. Your heart stops now, doesn't it? Mine did. I felt the world tilt, my stomach churning. He radioed dispatch, his words clipped urgent. The dispatcher asked him to repeat her voice, sharp with disbelief. Within 10 minutes, the county sheriff arrived, his face grim. The coroner followed a woman with steady hands, but eyes that betrayed her shock. They opened the other bags, their movements slow, deliberate. I didn't need to see to know. The air told me, thick, heavy wrong. The officer walked me back to my house. Another joining us. I showed them the footage on my phone, the truck's blurry shape, passing twice, pulling into the lot. On my laptop, we watched it again, pausing, zooming, searching for details. The license plate was a smudge, the man's face obscured. Look at the screen. Now, see the truth slipping away. They took copies of the footage, asked for a week's worth of recordings. I nodded. Numb, my mind stuck on those bags. The body was in pieces, they said, but nothing else. No age, no gender, no cause. The investigation was fresh, the details locked tight. I sat in my living room, the fire station's lights glowing through my window. A police cruiser parked there now, its presence a frail shield. The man who dumped those bags was local. I knew it. Feel the dread now, knowing he's close, hidden among neighbors. He'd chosen that lot, knowing it was unwatched, betting the holiday trash would bury his secret. If I hadn't been in the backyard, hadn't trusted my gut, those bags would have vanished, crushed in the landfill, the victim lost forever. No justice, no closure. Let me tell you about my neighbor. His story will make you question everything. He's a retired cop, lived here longer than me. Over coffee one morning, I told him about the truck, the bags. His face darkened. Years ago, he'd seen similar things. Trash bags dumped at night, never checked. People hide things here, he said, his voice low. The lot's too easy. He'd heard rumors, whispers of missing folks' cases that went cold. The man in the truck he thought wasn't new. He'd scouted the lot before, maybe for years. I don't sleep much now. The cameras catch every leaf, every shadow, but they don't catch him. I check the locks, keep my dog close, her warmth a reminder. I'm not alone, but I feel him out there in the streets. I walk the stores, I shop. Feel the chill now, the way it crawls up your spine. The town looks the same, quiet, friendly, but it's not. He's here among us, waiting. I've moved twice before, running from a stalker I never saw. Now I'm planning a third. Third time's the charm, right? But deep down, I know no matter where I go, those bags will follow me. The night shift at the old slaughterhouse was never easy, but I thought I could handle it. The air was thick with the stench of rust and decay, the kind that clings to your skin and never lets go. I was alone on the east side, my flashlight cutting through the dark, when I saw him, my partner, standing at the back gate, his cigarette glowing like a beacon. Except he wasn't there. He was half a mile away, and whatever I saw was wearing his face. In my late 20s, I took a job as an overnight security guard at a defunct beef slaughterhouse, a sprawling relic that had been shuttered for a year, but still held enough machinery and scrap to tempt thieves. The place was a maze of rusted pipes, shadowed corridors, and cavernous rooms where the air smelled of iron and old blood. It was a lonely gig, but I was used to solitude, and the pay was enough to keep me going. There were always two of us on duty, splitting the perimeter, one taking the east side, the other the west, circling the property, like hawks guarding a carcass. We'd meet at the back gate, a rusted chain-link barrier at the far end of the lot, to exchange a few words, maybe share a cigarette before switching routes. It was routine, predictable, until the night it wasn't. The slaughterhouse wasn't just empty. It was wrong. Even on quiet nights, it hummed with unease, a low vibration you felt in your bones. The catwalks overhead, where workers once stood, would groan without reason, their metal creaking in the cold. Shadows moved in the cattle pens, fleeting shapes you'd catch from the corner of your eye, gone when you turned to look. Sometimes, pebbles would skitter across the concrete, as if thrown from the empty walkways above. My partner, a gruff guy named Tom, always blamed it on the building, settling the metal, shrinking in the night air. I nodded along, but I didn't believe it. Not really. The place felt alive, like it was watching us, waiting for us to slip up. That night, I started my shift at 11 p.m. My flashlight, a weak beam, against the swallowing dark. The air was frigid, the kind that bites through your jacket and settles in your chest. I radioed Tom, my voice crackling through the static. "Heading out on the east side," I said, clipping the radio to my belt. His reply came quick, his voice rough, but steady. "I'm on the west, near the pens. See you at the gate in about 30. The perimeter was a long walk, 45 minutes, if you didn't stop to check doors, longer if you did. The east side was my least favorite. A stretch of cracked asphalt, flanked by towering silos and empty processing sheds, their windows black and unyielding. The back gate was visible from a distance, its chain link fence glinting under the single floodlight that still worked. I moved methodically, my boots crunching on gravel, my flashlight sweeping the shadows. The slaughterhouse was a graveyard of machines, conveyor belts frozen in place, hooks dangling from rusted chains, their tips stained with something I didn't want to think about. Every few steps, I stopped to check a door, tugging the padlocks to ensure they held. The locks were always secure, but the ritual grounded me a tether to the real world, in a place that felt anything but. 10 minutes from the gate, I glanced up my beam, catching the fence in the distance. That's when I saw him. Tom standing there, his back to me, the red glow of his cigarette, a pinpoint in the dark. His guard hat was tilted, his jacket unmistakable, the same navy blue we all wore patched at the elbows. "Dang, he's fast tonight," I muttered, a faint smile tugging at my lips. Tom was usually slow, taking his time to chat with anyone he met, but tonight he was ahead of schedule. I checked one more door, its lock cold and heavy in my hand, before heading toward the gate. But when I looked again, he was gone. The gate was empty, the floodlight casting a sterile glow over the bare asphalt. My smile faded, replaced by a prickle of unease. It wasn't like Tom to leave without waiting. We always met at the gate, always shared a quick word or a smoke. I unclipped my radio, pressing the button. "Tom, you okay? Why'd you ditch me at the gate?" My voice was light, teasing, but my gut was tight, a warning I couldn't ignore. The radio crackled, silent, for too long. Then Tom's voice came through sharp and confused. "What are you talking about? I'm in the cattle pens, nowhere near the gate. Won't be there for another 15 minutes. My heart stopped, a cold sweat breaking out on my neck. "No," I said, my voice trembling. "I saw you, Tom, at the gate, smoking, wearing your hat, your jacket. I saw you." He laughed, a nervous edge to it. "You're messing with me, right? I'm climbing a fence in the pens right now. Been talking to a cop in the staging lot for the last 10 minutes. I turned my flashlight, sweeping the cattle pens half a mile away. A faint beam flickered back, Tom's light flashing from the pens exactly where he said he was. My breath caught my hand tightening on the radio. "Tom, there's someone here," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "Someone inside the fence." I scanned the gate again, the empty space mocking me. The floodlights glow cold and unyielding. The figure I'd seen was real solid, not a shadow, not a trick of the light. It had Tom's hat, his jacket, his cigarette, but it wasn't him. It wasn't him. My mind raced, grasping for an explanation. A squatter, a thief. But the gates were locked, the fences unbroken. No one could have gotten in. Not that fast, not without us hearing. I radioed Tom again, my voice urgent. "Lock it down. We need to check everything." For 2 hours, we scoured the property, our flashlights cutting through the dark, our footsteps echoing in the empty sheds. We checked every door, every gate, every shadowed corner. Nothing. No footprints, no cigarette butts, no signs of anyone but us. The air grew colder as we searched the slaughterhouse's hum, louder, like a pulse beating in the walls. Tom was shaken, his usual bravado gone, his eyes darting to the catwalks above. "You sure you saw someone?" he asked, his voice low, like he didn't want the answer. I nodded my throat tight. "I saw you, Tom. Except it wasn't you." He didn't reply, just lit another cigarette, his hands trembling as he cupped the flame. We didn't talk about it after that, but the slaughterhouse was different now. The shadows felt heavier, the air thicker, like the place was holding its breath, waiting for us to make a mistake. I started hearing stories from other guards, whispered over coffee in the break room. One guy swore he'd seen a figure in the processing room, standing under a hook, gone when he blinked. Another said the radios would sometimes pick up voices, low, unintelligible murmurs when no one was transmitting. I didn't tell them what I saw, but I listened each story a weight on my chest. The slaughterhouse wasn't just abandoned. It was haunted, not by ghosts, but by something worse. Something that could wear your friend's face and walk your path. I quit a month later. I couldn't take the nights anymore, the way the dark seemed to watch me, the way every sound felt like a warning. I still dream about that gate, about the figure standing there, its cigarette glowing, its face hidden. I don't know what it was, a ghost, a demon, a piece of the slaughterhouse itself, but I know it was real. I know it saw me, and I know deep in my gut that it's still there, waiting for the next guard to walk by. The forest around our cabin was silent that afternoon, too silent as if it held its breath, waiting for something to break. I didn't know then that two men were already watching us, their steps drawing closer, their intentions cloaked in smiles. Last year, I needed an escape. My girlfriend of 3 years had walked out, leaving a hollow ache I couldn't shake. The Adirondack Mountains in upstate New York promised peace. Crisp air, endless pines, a chance to stitch my heart back together. My family rented a cabin tucked deep in the wilderness, a mile from the nearest neighbor. It felt like freedom, a sanctuary. But sanctuaries can become traps. The cabin was a dream, all wood and warmth, with a porch overlooking a valley where mist curled like ghosts. My brother, his fiancée, and I settled in the forest's embrace, soothing my raw edges. Step into this moment with me. Feel the calm of nature, the promise of healing. Days were spent hiking nights by the fire, the stars a blanket above. The isolation was its charm. No phones, no neighbors, just us and the wild. Or so we thought. That afternoon, around 5 p.m., the forest's spell broke. We were on the porch, sipping coffee, when a rustle came from the front, like footsteps, slow, deliberate. My brother and I exchanged a glance, our bodies tensing. You've felt this, haven't you? That prickle when the world shifts, warning you to run. We stood ready for anything as two men rounded the cabin, stepping into our sanctuary. I snapped, my voice sharp. Who are you? What do you want? The older one, wiry, with a sun-leathered face, grinned. Easy, young man. I'm Louis. This is Tito. Heard this spot's got a killer view. Mind if we take a look? His tone was warm, but his eyes were cold, scanning us like prey. Tito, taller, broad-shouldered, said nothing, his face blank, his gaze fixed on the cabin's windows. My mother ever, the peacemaker, smiled and chatted, asking where they were from. Lewis spun a tale. Hikers, lovers of the Adirondacks, drawn by stories of our view. Tito stood apart, his silence louder than Lewis's words. Look closer now. See Tito's eyes empty, locked on the cabin like it's his. I didn't trust them. The nearest cabin was a mile away, owned by our landlord. Why hike this far, uninvited? My stomach churned, but my mother's laughter kept me quiet. After 10 minutes, Lewis tipped an imaginary hat, and they melted into the trees. The forest swallowed them, but their presence lingered. I turned to my family, my voice low. Something's off. They shouldn't be here. My mother brushed it off, hikers, harmless. My brother nodded, but his eyes were wary. Feel the doubt now, the way it gnaws at your trust. I couldn't shake it. Lewis's smile was too practiced, Tito's silence too heavy. Where had they come from? The trail was rough, the hour late. I paced the porch, the forest's shadows stretching longer, darker. Night fell, and my unease grew a weight I carried alone. By 11 p.m., my mother and my brother's fiancé had gone to bed. My brother and I stayed by the fire pit, its flames casting flickers on the trees. Every snap of a twig made me flinch. "You're paranoid," my brother said, his voice light but strained. I forced a smile, but my eyes darted to the woods. "You've sat like this, haven't you? Watching the dark, knowing it watches back." The fire crackled, the only sound in a world too still. We let the logs burn low, planning to head inside when the trees parted. Louis and Tito stepped out, their faces lit by the dying embers. They weren't the same. Lewis's charm was gone. His eyes wide, wild, his teeth bared in a grin that wasn't human. Tito, no longer a statue, matched his pace, a long blade gleaming in his hand. "Your heart's racing now, isn't it?" Mine was a drum in my chest. We leapt from our chairs, facing them across the fire's glow. Lewis's voice was low, venomous. "This cabin's perfect. We're staying. You're leaving." He reached into a bag, his movements slow, deliberate. Tito raised his blade, its edge catching the light. Instinct took over. My brother lunged, tackling Lewis to the ground, the bag spilling into the dirt. Tito advanced his blade, aimed at my brother's back. I charged, adrenaline fueling me, shoving Tito with all my strength. He stumbled, his face twisting with rage. Feel the rush now, the fight for survival. Lewis scrambled up, his voice a snarl. "You don't know who I am. This is my land, my house." He repeated it, a mantra, as Tito echoed his voice, flat, robotic. "We'll take it back. The time will come." Tito grabbed Lewis's shoulder, and they bolted into the woods, the darkness swallowing them whole. We doused the fire, its embers hissing into silence, and ran inside. We locked every door, every window, checking each one twice. Stay with me here. Feel the panic, the need to barricade. My brother and I sat in the living room, eyes on the glass doors, the forest beyond a black void. We didn't sleep, our hands gripping flashlights, our ears straining for any sound. The night stretched, endless, each minute a test of our nerve. Dawn broke pale and cold, and I've never loved light more. Morning came, and we packed in silence, the cabin's warmth a lie. We drove to the property owner, a grizzled man who'd built the place himself. I told him everything. Luis Tito, their threats, their claim. His face hardened. Never heard of them, he said. I built this cabin 10 years ago. No one else. Look at his eyes. Now see the truth he's sure of. He refunded our stay, his voice kind but firm. We left the mountains, no longer a refuge, their beauty tainted by fear. Let me tell you about the ranger. His story will make you question everything. Months later, I met a park ranger at a gas station, his badge glinting in the sun. I mentioned the cabin, the men. He paused, his coffee cup halfway to his lips. Folks talk about squatters up there, he said. 2 men, maybe drifters claiming old land. Seen them once, years back. One had a knife, the other a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He didn't know, their names didn't need to. I felt it then, the same chill, the same dread. I'm different now. The Adirondacks are a memory. I avoid their trails, a map of fear. Feel the weight now, the way it clings to your bones. I lock my doors, check my windows, see Lewis's grin in every shadow. The cabin was my escape, but it trapped me in a new kind of prison. Those men are still out there. I know, waiting in the woods for someone new to claim. And sometimes, in the quiet, I hear their footsteps drawing closer. 3 years ago, when I was 16, I thought the campground I called home was a paradise, a place of endless summers and carefree nights. But one night, as I lay in bed, the air thick with heat, and the glow of my DS casting shadows on the wall, I heard something outside my window, a rustling, too heavy, too deliberate to be an animal. I turned, and there he was, an old man, his toothless grin wide and manic, his eyes locked on mine through the thin mesh screen. He wasn't alone, and they weren't just watching, they were waiting. In the summer of 2008, I was 16, living in a campground in rural America, a sprawling patch of land where trailers and tents dotted the landscape like scattered dreams. The campground was a strange mix of worlds up front. a lively hub of seasonal campers with a sparkling pool and a pavilion that thrummed with music and laughter every night. In the back, where my family lived, a row of trailers housed permanent residents, mostly elderly folks, chasing a quiet life close to nature. My mom, my older brother, and I had moved there after Mom's divorce, settling into a modest trailer with a view of the woods. It was a place of freedom for a kid like me. Days spent splashing in the pool nights, chasing fireflies, or sneaking off with other kids to tell ghost stories under the stars. But even paradise has its shadows, and I was about to learn how dark they could be. Our trailer was small but cozy, its walls thin enough to hear the hum of cicadas or the occasional howl of a coyote in the woods behind us. My room was a cramped space at the back with a single window facing the tree line, its screen worn and slightly warped from years of weathering. The summer heat was brutal, turning the trailer into an oven, so I'd taken to leaving the window open at night, the blinds raised to let in the faint breeze. It was a habit born of necessity, one I didn't think twice about, even after the rumors started. The kids in the campground, temporary campers, who came and went with the seasons, had been whispering for weeks about an elderly couple who'd been spotted lurking in the shadows. They said the couple would peer into windows, follow people down dark paths, even slip into the public showers uninvited. It sounded like a campfire tale, the kind of story kids told to scare each other, and I laughed it off. I'd lived here for years, knew every corner of the campground, and I'd never seen anything stranger than a drunk camper stumbling back to their tent. But my mom took it seriously, her face tight as she reminded me to close my blinds at night. Just in case she'd said her voice low, like she knew something I didn't. I ignored her. The heat was unbearable, and the idea of some creepy old couple didn't scare me. I was 16, invincible in that reckless teenage way, convinced nothing could touch me in my own home. That night, I was sprawled on my bed, the glow of my DS casting a faint blue light across the room, the TV murmuring old Disney Channel reruns in the background. It was around 1 a.m., the campground quiet, the party at the pavilion long over. My mom and brother were asleep, their snores a soft rhythm through the thin walls. The air was thick, heavy, with the scent of pine and warm earth, the kind of night where you could almost taste the summer. I was half lost in my game, my thumbs tapping the buttons when I heard it, a rustling outside my window, low and deliberate, like footsteps crunching through leaves. My fingers froze, my eyes flicking to the screen, but I didn't turn. It was probably just the cats, I told myself, the strays that roamed the campground playing in the underbrush, or maybe a raccoon scavenging for scraps. The woods were alive at night, a symphony of small sounds I'd grown used to over the years. But this was different. The rustling was heavier, slower, not the skittering of an animal, but the measured tread of something larger, something careful. My heart quickened, a faint thud against my ribs, but I kept my eyes on the DS, willing myself to stay calm. It's nothing. I thought, my breath shallow, my thumbs hovering over the buttons. The sound grew louder, closer, the leaves shifting with purpose, each step a deliberate press against the ground. My skin prickled, a cold sweat breaking out despite the heat. I set the DS down, my hands trembling, and listened, every nerve on edge. The rustling stopped, replaced by a new sound, a faint rhythmic scratching, like a fingernail dragging across the mesh screen of my window. My stomach dropped a sickening lurch that made the room spin. That's not an animal, my mind screamed, but I couldn't move, couldn't look. My body was locked, my eyes fixed on the TV, the laugh track, a cruel mockery of my fear. Turn around, a voice in my head whispered, urgent and insistent. You have to know. But I didn't want to know. I wanted to stay frozen safe in my denial, pretending the world outside my window was still the one I knew. The scratching continued, slow and deliberate, each drag of the nail a taunt, a challenge. My breath was shallow, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I turned slow and reluctant, my eyes drawn to the window, like a moth to a flame. And there he was, an old man, his face pressed close to the screen, his eyes wide and unblinking, gleaming in the faint light of my room. His mouth stretched into a toothless grin, wide and manic, like he'd been waiting for me to see him, like this was the moment he'd come for. His skin was pale, almost gray, his hair stringy and matted, hanging in clumps around his face. He didn't move, didn't blink, just stared, his grin fixed, his gaze boring into me like a drill. I froze my body, a statue, my breath trapped in my throat. The world narrowed to that window, that faced those eyes, that seemed to see not just me, but something deeper, something I didn't want to name. The grin wasn't cruel, wasn't threatening. It was happy, a twisted, gleeful expression that made my skin crawl. It was as if he'd been waiting, watching, savoring the moment I noticed him. My hands fumbled for the blinds, my fingers clumsy, shaking as I twisted the rod, the slats snapping shut, with a force that rattled the frame. I grabbed my blanket, pulling it over my head, my breath shallow and ragged, my body curled tight, as if I could make myself invisible. I stayed like that for hours, my ears straining for any sound, my mind racing with questions I didn't want answered. Who was he? Why was he there? What did he want? The trailer was silent, the campground still, but I could feel him, his presence lingering like a stain on the air. When morning came, I stumbled out of bed, my eyes red, my body heavy with exhaustion. I told my mom what happened, my voice trembling, my words tumbling out in a rush. She called the campground owners, her friends, who listened with grim faces. They told us the old man and his wife had been caught that night, not just at our trailer, but at another, peering into a camper's window, while a woman inside screamed. The police had come swift and silent and evicted them, their belongings packed into a battered van that disappeared into the dawn. They'd been doing it for over a week, the owners said, moving from trailer to tent, their eyes always watching their steps, always silent until they weren't. No one knew why. Some said it was a perverse thrill. Others, a strange compulsion, a game to see how long they could go unnoticed. I didn't care about their reasons. I just wanted them gone. The campground didn't feel the same after that. The pool still sparkled. The pavilion still sang. But the nights were heavier, the shadows deeper. I kept my blinds closed, even when the heat was suffocating my window, locked tight against the world outside. I started hearing stories from other residents, whispers of figures in the dark, of faces at windows, of footsteps that stopped just before you turned. One woman swore she'd seen the old woman's face, her eyes hollow, her mouth a thin line watching from the woods. A kid claimed he'd found scratches on his tent, too precise to be from an animal. I didn't tell them my story, but I listened each tale, a weight on my chest, a reminder that the campground wasn't the safe haven I'd thought it was. I lived there for 7 years, my childhood shaped by its joys and its terrors. It was a place of endless summers of laughter and freedom, but also of eyes in the dark of watchers who didn't belong. I don't know what drove that couple, what made them stand outside my window, grinning into my world. But I know they saw me, and I know they wanted me to see them. And I know deep in my bones that they're still out there somewhere watching, waiting for the next window to open. The room pulsed with laughter and clinking glasses, but his eyes cut through the noise, cold and unyielding, locking onto me like I was already his prey. Brisbane, Australia was my wife's hometown. a sun-soaked escape for our New Year's holiday in 2008. We'd flown in to relax with her family, to trade the chill of our routine for warmth and celebration. The party was at her cousin's house, a sprawling place filled with unfamiliar faces, about 20 people, only 4 of whom I knew. My wife, her parents, her brother-in-law. The rest were strangers, their smiles polite but distant. I was an outsider, sipping beer, trying to blend in. Then I met Jono, and the night turned into something I'd never forget. The house was alive, decked in festive lights, the air thick with the scent of roasted lamb and summer heat. Step into this moment with me. Feel the buzz of a party, the warmth of strangers, the edge of not belonging. We'd eaten dinner, laughed through dessert, and now the bonbons came out, those paper crackers you pull apart to reveal trinkets. I sat at a long table, my wife across the room, when the man next to me offered one end of a bonbon. He was about 30 lean, with sharp cheekbones and a ginger beer he'd been nursing all night. No alcohol, no small talk, just a nod when I sat down. I didn't think much of it until we pulled. The cracker split, and a purple tissue paper hat, shaped like a crown, landed in my lap. I chuckled, offering it to him. "You want this?" His eyes snapped to mine, hard, unblinking. "Put it on, mate," he said, his voice low. Not a request, but a command. Feel the shift now, the way a moment turns wrong. I laughed it off, awkward, saying it was too small, better for a kid. His face darkened, his jaw tight. "It's a party. Have fun. Put it on." The words were sharp, slicing through the room's cheer. I stood mumbling about giving it to a child and found my wife. "Who's that guy?" I asked, handing her the hat. She frowned. "Jono, I think." "Don't know him well." I returned to my seat, but Jono was gone, weaving through the crowd, his eyes never leaving me. Look closer now. See his gaze tracking you across the room. He'd stop to talk, pointing at me, his hands mimicking putting on a hat. Guests glanced my way, confused, their smiles fading. I felt exposed, a spotlight I couldn't escape. My wife's brother-in-law joined me, and we chatted about the weather, anything to ground me. Then Jono appeared, his voice cutting through. "This guy," he sneered, jabbing a finger at me, "won't even wear the hat. It's New Year's and he's too good for fun." His disgust was palpable, his eyes boring into me. My brother-in-law steered the conversation away, but Jono leaned close, his breath hot against my ear. "You'll wear that hat, even if I have to put it on your dead head." Your heart's racing now, isn't it? Mine was a drum in my chest. The threat hung there, heavy, absurd. Who says that over a paper hat? I forced a laugh, but my hands shook. The party went on music chatter, but Jono was everywhere, watching from corners, his grin sharp, predatory. Sometimes he'd point at me, his fingers shaping a gun, mouthing silent shots across the room. You've felt this, haven't you? Being hunted in a crowd, nowhere to hide. I stayed close to my wife, her family, trying to shake the feeling that I was marked. I needed a break. The bathroom was down a dim hallway, the door locked when I got there. I waited. The party's noise muffled my pulse, loud in my ears. The door opened, and Jono stepped out, his eyes raking over me. He blocked the frame, one arm stretched across. "Sorry, mate," he said, his voice dripping with menace. "Only for people who wear party hats." His laugh was cold, his face too close, his eyes wild. Then he stepped aside, letting me pass. Feel the tension now, the way his presence chokes the air. I locked the door behind me, my hands trembling. Moments later, the door shook, pounded with a force that rattled the hinges. 3 times, hard, deliberate. A voice screamed through the wood. "Wear the hat. It's a party." Then silence, thick and wrong. I stayed in the bathroom, counting my breaths, waiting for the world to make sense. Stay with me here. Feel the quiet, the fear it hides. When I finally stepped out, the hallway was empty, the party unchanged. A guest I didn't know grabbed my arm. "Did you see that guy?" He was losing it, slamming his head against the door. I nodded, numb, scanning for Jono. He was gone. The room felt lighter, but his absence was a new kind of dread. I found my wife, made an excuse, headache, jet lag, and we left the night's joy poisoned. Back at her parents' house, I couldn't sleep. Jono's words echoed. His eyes burned into my memory. "You've lain awake like this, haven't you? Seeing a face that won't leave." At 3 a.m., sharp knocks jolted me upright. Not a hand, but something heavier, like metal on wood. I crept to the front door, my wife stirring behind me. I opened it slowly, the night air cold against my skin. No one was there. Then I saw it. A purple party hat nailed to the door with a 10-inch spike, its tissue paper torn, fluttering in the breeze. Look at it now. See the threat it carries. My wife gasped, her hand on my arm. We didn't speak. We packed and flew home the next day, cutting our holiday short. Let me tell you about the cousin. Her story will make you question everything. Months later, I called my wife's cousin, the party's host. I needed answers. She hesitated, then spoke. Jono was a friend of a friend invited last minute. He'd been quiet, odd, but no one expected this. She'd heard whispers after we left. Jono had a history, fights, threats, a fixation on small things that turned violent. Someone saw him that night, lingering near her parents' street, watching. She didn't know if he'd nailed the hat, but the thought made her sick. I'm changed now. Parties feel like traps, strangers, like threats. Feel the weight now, the way it clings to your bones. I see Jono's eyes in every crowd, his grin in every shadow. That hat, that nail they were burned into me, a reminder of how close I came to something I can't name. He's out there, I know, waiting for another party, another chance. And sometimes, in the quiet, I hear those knocks, sharp and heavy, calling me back.